What if the myths of the past were not just myths? What if the tales carved into stone, sung by poets, and passed down through generations were more than allegory? What if they were fragments of memory, echoes of a forgotten age of technology? Today, we step into one of the most fascinating mysteries of human history. The possibility that ancient civilizations possessed knowledge that mirrors our modern science and warfare. This journey takes us deep into the heart of India's greatest epics, the Mahabharata and the Ramayana. Written thousands of years ago, these texts describe flying machines called vimanas, weapons of unimaginable destruction like the Brahmastra, and strategies of war that sound eerily familiar to the technologies we see today. Drones, missiles, even nuclear bombs. Coincidence? Or could these ancient blueprints have predicted the very tools of modern warfare? The purpose of this exploration is not to sensationalize, but to investigate, to peel back the layers of myth and legend and ask, what truths might be hidden in these stories? We'll examine the individuals and groups central to these narratives, the sages and poets who composed them, the warriors who wielded their legendary weapons, and the modern researchers and military strategists who continue to study them. We'll trace their historical timeline from the Vedic period of 3000 BCE to the present day. We'll look at the geographical significance of sites like Mohenjo-daro, where some claim evidence of ancient nuclear devastation still lingers. And we'll connect these ancient accounts to modern initiatives, like the Indian Army's Project Udbhav, which seeks to draw strategic lessons from these very texts. But why does this matter today? Because in an age where artificial intelligence directs drones, where nuclear weapons remain a looming threat, and where nations race to dominate the skies and cyberspace, these ancient warnings feel hauntingly relevant. The epics don't just describe power, they warn of its consequences. They remind us that unchecked ambition without wisdom can lead to devastation. By revisiting these blueprints, we challenge the idea that human progress is a straight line from primitive to advanced. What if knowledge is cyclical? What if civilizations rise, achieve greatness, and then fall, leaving behind only fragments of their brilliance in myths and legends? And more importantly, what lessons can we learn from them to ensure we don't repeat the same mistakes? This is not just a story about the past, it's a story about us, our future, our choices, and the hidden wisdom of civilizations long gone. Welcome to the ancient blueprint that predicted modern warfare.
Every great story begins with its storytellers. And in the case of India's ancient epics, those storytellers were more than poets. They were visionaries, philosophers, and custodians of knowledge. At the heart of this legacy stands Vyasa, the sage credited with composing the Mahabharata, a monumental work of over 100,000 verses. Imagine that. A single text longer than the Iliad and the Odyssey combined, weaving together cosmic battles, moral dilemmas, and glimpses of technology that seem centuries ahead of their time. Vyasa wasn't just writing a story, he was encoding wisdom, embedding lessons about ethics, warfare, and the very nature of existence. And he wasn't alone. Alongside him were other rishis, sages who contributed to the Vedas and the Ramayana, attributed to Valmiki. These weren't simple tales of kings and demons. They were epics of strategy, divine intervention, and machines that could soar through the skies. But here's the question that keeps echoing through time. Were these descriptions purely symbolic, or were they memories of something real? Fast forward to the 20th century, writers like Erich von Däniken burst onto the scene with bold claims. In his 1968 bestseller Chariots of the Gods, he suggested that the gods of ancient texts were not divine beings at all, but visitors from the stars, ancient astronauts. His ideas were controversial, criticized for lacking hard evidence, yet they ignited a firestorm of curiosity. Suddenly, the Mahabharata and Ramayana weren't just cultural treasures, they were potential records of lost civilizations or even extraterrestrial encounters. Others, like David Hatcher Childress, expanded on these theories, exploring the possibility that ancient societies possessed technologies of flight and explosive weaponry. While mainstream historians remain cautious, dismissing many of these claims as pseudoscience, the debate itself has forced scholars to re-examine old evidence with fresh eyes. Historians and archaeologists, for one, Revisiting sites like Mohenjo-daro, they've debated whether signs of advanced urban planning or even vitrified ruins hint at something extraordinary. While claims of ancient nuclear blasts remain controversial, the very act of questioning has breathed new life into archaeological research. Modern militaries too are paying attention. In 2023, the Indian Army launched Project Udbhav, an initiative to integrate ancient strategic wisdom into modern training. From deception and diplomacy in the Arthashastra to battlefield ethics in the Mahabharata, these texts are shaping how soldiers think about war in the 21st century. And then there are the skeptics, those who challenge pseudo-historical claims, ensuring the debate remains rigorous. Meanwhile, sci-fi enthusiasts and filmmakers find endless inspiration, weaving these ancient visions into novels, movies, and even video games. At the core of it all lies the blueprint itself, the descriptions of warfare that sound eerily familiar to us today. The Mahabharata and Ramayana speak of vimanas, flying chariots capable of rapid maneuvers, invisibility, and aerial combat. Some accounts describe them as double-decked circular crafts with portholes powered by mysterious energies, able to traverse vast distances in moments. Doesn't that sound like the stealth fighters and drones of our own age? And then there's the Brahmastra, a weapon so devastating it could scorch the earth, render land infertile, and cause symptoms eerily similar to radiation sickness. Hair falling out, nails disintegrating, poisoned water supplies. A weapon that could only be countered by another of equal power. If that doesn't echo the logic of nuclear deterrence, what does? The surprises don't end there. Ravana's Pushpaka Vimana could expand or contract, change course instantly, and even become invisible. Today, we call that adaptive drone technology and stealth engineering. At Mohenjo-daro, vitrified bricks have been cited as evidence of extreme heat, possibly from a blast. Mainstream archaeology attributes this to natural causes like flooding and fire, but the debate refuses to die. And in the early 20th century, Indian scholars even attempted to reconstruct Vimana designs from texts like the Vaimanika Shastra. Though its authenticity is debated, the very attempt shows how deeply these ancient visions continue to inspire. The Mahabharata's Kurukshetra war describes 18 days of relentless battle. Warriors unleashed divine astras, celestial weapons that could summon fire, wind, or illusions. Think about that. Firestorms, hurricanes, psychological warfare. Doesn't that sound like chemical weapons, weather manipulation, or even disinformation campaigns? In the Ramayana, during the siege of Lanka, Rama's arrows are described as homing in on their targets, guided missiles in poetic disguise. And woven into these tales are not just weapons, but strategies, the importance of alliances, intelligence gathering, and above all, ethics. Krishna's counsel to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita is not just spiritual, it's a manual on the morality of war. So, were these just stories, or were they warnings, blueprints left behind by civilizations that knew more than we dare to imagine?